Good afternoon and welcome to the latest from Heart Standard. I always want to say morning briefing, but it's not. It's 4:30 in the afternoon. So just briefing. My name is Joel Sked, editor of Heart Standard, and I am joined by James Kearney, also of Heart Standard, as we look ahead to Heart of Midlothian's trip to Aberdeen in the Scottish Premiership on Saturday, a venue Hearts haven't won at since 2016 when Abiola Dowda scored the scruffiest of scruffy goals to win 1-0. Since then, Hearts have not won at Pittodrie. I think Aberdeen have won at Tynecastle maybe once since then, but not in a long time. So it's very much a fixture where the home team prevails. Now, where to start with this one, James? I suppose we'll kind of maybe look back to go forward and look back at yesterday's press conference with Stephen Naismith. All the quotes are up on the site, and it went kind of team news went up last night. Cammy Devlin's going to be out for a month, and I'm going to say that Liam Boyce, just the tone of Stephen Naismith and the way he said it suggests that Liam Boyce is a very, very big doubt for it as well. So while these players are coming back, in typical Hearts fashion, there's also other players getting injured and going out. So with the team news, what was your thought when I told you that Devlin was going out for a month?
Well, I mean, I'm a card-carrying Cammy Devlin fan. I think he's really good. I really like him. So naturally, I'm disappointed. I think it's a really big blow for Hearts. I just think that when you look at the makeup of the other midfielders in the squad, there's nobody quite like him. In fact, there's nobody even almost like him in terms of like his ball winning stuff, stuff off his work off the ball, getting the ball back, winning it back. He's one of the best players in the league at it. There's nobody else kind of comes close to it, and I do think that having a ball winner in the field like that is really important for Hearts, because I don't think. I mean, recently, obviously, Neuenhoff's been playing that kind of right centre mid role, and while I think he's obviously got certain skills, certain qualities, but I don't think I don't think he is a ball winner particularly. I don't think many people would say he is, and I don't think anyone else in the squad is either. So yeah, that's a concern for me from that point of view. I just think that Devlin's very difficult to replace. Boyce perhaps less so, even though Boyce has been playing really well, I think, over the last few games. Whenever he's been playing, he's formed a good partnership with Shankland, but as we've spoken about loads, it doesn't give you that pace. He doesn't have that pace to get in behind, which isn't great. So, but there are other options in that area of the park. There's Kenneth Vargas, there's Kisuke Tagawa. There are options there. Whereas I just think in midfield, there really aren't those sort of options, unless you start looking at people like Andy Halliday or Peter Haring, who Naismith doesn't appear to be very interested in whatsoever. So yeah, I think it's definitely a blow, and the sooner he gets back, I'd imagine the better. But the flip side of that, of course, is that he's not been playing much recently. He's not been a regular starter, and so from Naismith's perspective, it probably shouldn't disrupt things too much. In that he wasn't he's been on the bench the last like 3, 4, 5 games now, struggling to get game time. It's probably not the most disruptive thing in the world for a player like that to drop out the squad, compared to, if Shankland got an injury, or if Benny Beningame gets an injury or someone like that,
Yeah, I agree with that side of things. But then again, I look at the fixtures coming up, and you're thinking, want Devlin in that game, I want Devlin in that game, I want Devlin in that game. And one of these games is tomorrow, because I go back to last season, and it was one of those games where it was towards the end of, or one of those games that contributed to Nielsen's departure. We went up to Aberdeen and genuinely put in one of the most rancid performances of last campaign. And it was positive, if I remember correctly, it was 3-0 after in the first half, and I think it was pretty much done and dusted within the first half hour. And you looked at the Aberdeen side, that game, they were so energetic. They made it really, really difficult for Hearts, and they got in their face. And big one was Graham Shinney. He was everywhere. He was playing like a man possessed, and Cammy Devlin sat on the bench that whole game. And you just think, if Graham Shinney's running riot, bring Cammy Devlin on, just like, right, you just try and stop him from you basically do what and Graham Shinney's doing, and see who comes out on top. It was like, just go up against each other. And that's what I look at tomorrow and think Hearts might need. And then you go to Celtic Park next week. I think Hearts could do with Cammy Devlin there. And if there's a midfielder I want in the midfield against Hibs at Easter Road, it is Cammy Devlin. Whereas Benny and the Hoff, I think they both players for different reasons. Like split opinion within the Hearts support. Something that kind of we touched on with Scott yesterday when looking back at the Rangers game is that they're kind of different midfielders, but it's kind of similar. And at the same time, you've written about it before that Benny's a number 6. He gets the ball, keeps it short and sharp, doesn't play kind of longer passes. He's quite good at kind of intercepting. Neuenhoff's a wee bit more, mobile. He'll go after it, but similarly, he'll keep it quite tidy, short and sharp. So they're probably the two midfielders kind of most similar. So yeah, it's I think we could look back on it in a month's time and seeing Devlin has been a big miss. Yes, with the caveat that he's not been playing all that often.
No, yeah, Chelsea, I think you're probably right. I mean, like you say, Aberdeen away, Parkhead after that, and then the derby, obviously. Yes, you would like, I think you're right. I think you would want to see Cammy Devlin in all those games. I think those are games that he's very, very suited to. But again, the flip side would be that, okay, he's not been playing recently and Hearts have been winning. For the exception of Wednesday night, obviously. But so yeah, I think that, well, I'm disappointed and I'd like to see more of him. As I say, I don't think it's, in terms of Naismith's kind of planning for the next few matches, it's probably not as disruptive as it otherwise could have been, I don't think. So yeah, big loss, and these are exactly the kind of games Devlin thrives in. I mean, I'm sure the game, the 2-0 at Tynecastle earlier in the season, I'm sure Devlin and Shinnie had a bit of a kind of running battle that day as well, if memory serves me right.
Yeah, one of Devlin's best, the best individual. I mean, he's quite. He actually had quite a few usually good performances this season, but I think he's really stood out against Aberdeen.
I mean, there's help the fact that that was the Aberdeen team were not very good.
Yes, absolutely.
Didn't see all that fussed. And then last thing, looking ahead to tomorrow, it's going to be a really fascinating one because Aberdeen, obviously, in the league, they've not been doing anywhere near good enough. They're 11th, I think now. Okay, I think they're maybe 1 or 2 games behind some of the other teams around them, but still, for a club Aberdeen size to be in we're approaching halfway through December, they've only won 3 league matches. That's wild. That's crazy. But then at the same time, you look at the 4 points they picked up against Rangers. That's impressive. I've seen a fair bit of them in Europe this season, and again, while there are performances that have disappointed them, there's a lot of games, they lost when they probably should have got a draw, or they drew when they probably should have got a win. But they've held their own and competed in every single match, which, let's be honest, for Scottish teams, particularly outside Celtic and Rangers, that's rare. At any level, we don't often see that. Normally, let's be honest, when a Scottish team, and just look at last season with Hearts, I mean, everyone had a great time, we all had a laugh, but Hearts were never in danger of progressing out of that group. Whereas Aberdeen, okay, maybe results-wise didn't quite go for them, but I think performance-wise they've been quite good. So they've got this weird thing where I think they're capable of playing quite well against better teams, but it seems to be punching down that's the problem. So I think that's why it's going to be a really fascinating contest this weekend, just because I don't really know what to expect. History will tell you Aberdeen will win. The league table will tell you that Hearts will win. I'm all out of ideas. I could go 3-0 either way. I wouldn't be too surprised, I don't think. You won't be surprised by this, Jay, but my pessimistic view of having been a Hearts fan for 34 years is the fact that Aberdeen are really struggling. They really need a win, and Hearts have not won in Pittodrie since 2016. It all points to a Aberdeen victory. But at the same time, I've seen Aberdeen fans on social media are going, "Oh, Hearts haven't won here since 2016. Let's I know what's happening tomorrow." So it works both ways. But exactly, yeah.
I'm just looking at Graham's comment here because we'll get to team selection shortly. But since we're talking about Aberdeen, we may as well stick on them. Aberdeen are really struggling, and we have players back. I watched Aberdeen against Hibs, and it was just at the weekend. It was just such a bizarre game, and they're just a bizarre team. I think they're the most perplexing team within Scottish football. I reckon that they, like you talked about with their European performances. Watched them against Palk over in Greece. Hearts, of course, went there and really struggled. Never looked like getting anything out of that game and qualifying for the group stages. Aberdeen were really. Aberdeen over the piece were pretty good. Yes, Palk missed a few chances. Another day, you probably fancy them to win, but they were much more competitive than Hearts were, and they did pose a goal threat. You talked about the performances against Rangers. Then watched them against Hibs on Sunday, and on another, like, you play that game another 10 times, and Aberdeen easily probably winning that 7-8 times out of 10, but because of the chances they missed a penalty, gave up cheap goals. So while they are struggling, they're just a kind of Jekyll and Hyde team who I don't think they've quite settled down this season. Naismith's talked a lot about the European, like juggling European and domestic results and performances, and that's probably had an impact. I still think they are probably playing within themselves. It's almost like Barry Robson's tactics are making them play within themselves, in that they're quite a reactive team. They sit quite deep, but they pose a great threat on the counter attack. And I don't think they're getting the best out of Leighton Clarkson, but when they do click, they're just a really difficult team to play against. So yeah, I don't think it's as simple as maybe Graham says, that a game we need to be winning. Ideally, as a game we want to win and look at. And I can understand. Let me gather my thoughts here. I can understand the viewpoint because of how where Aberdeen are on the table, that Hearts should be looking at and like, we should be winning here. But at the same time, I do think you still need to be wary of Aberdeen and the threats they pose, especially someone like Bojan Miovski.
Yeah, he's obviously an excellent player. The big debate we see a lot these days on social media is, who's better, Shankland or Miovski, and that kind of thing. And he's an excellent player. It's obviously Shankland, obviously.
Yeah,
but Miovski, chances are he's probably away in January. If he's not, surely at the end of the season, whether that's to an English Championship club or even a Premier League club, whoever it might be, fine. No, he's an excellent player. There are good players in that squad, obviously. We all know that. But I think that the reason that this is such a great opportunity for Hearts to finally end that kind of Pittodrie hoodoo they've got is the fact that we know that patience is going to be an incredibly short supply. Because let's be honest, I think that Barry Robson is probably 2 or 3 bad results away from being in real trouble for losing his job. So,
he's sorry to interrupt, but he's in a position that Hearts fans and Hearts will be well aware of, because Naismith's been in that position this season where there's been little patience or time over the management, and it's just waiting for something to happen for it to turn. I actually think Hearts fans have probably been more patient than Aberdeen fans from what I've heard. Like a lot of Hearts fans, criticism or discussion or angst has been after the game, like just on the kind of social media, discussing within between fans rather than an outpouring of frustration while the game's going on. I don't think that's been the case at Aberdeen.
No, exactly. And I think that's the thing. I think if, particularly the first kind of 20 minutes, half an hour or so, if you can kind of slow the game down, frustrate Aberdeen, make life difficult for them, don't really give them an inch, that crowd can turn. And I think that's got to be that's a really big objective here. I think that's got to be a great opportunity, because we know obviously Pittodrie, it's a big stadium, lots of fans there. And there is definitely an opportunity there, I think, to really, really frustrate those fans, because again, Robson doesn't have that much goodwill in the bank at the moment. I don't think it would take too long for, after a few misplaced passes or problems and move breaks down, to start getting groans and grumbles from the crowd. And then at that point, obviously, you can feed off that and use it against them. So I think it will be, from a Hearts perspective, I think it might be quite a kind of doers, maybe a bit much, but I think it'll be a very conservative, let's not take any risks, let's play it very safe here and see how we go, because I think it's gonna be one of those matches where the longer it stays now, the better Hearts' chances of drawing or even winning become. I think it's one of those games where the longer time goes on, the more frustrated the crowd gets, the more upset they get, the greater the chance there is there and for Hearts to take advantage of that, take advantage of, players' heads maybe dropping from the Aberdeen perspective or, whatever it might be. So yeah, I think that there is a really great opportunity here. I mean, I don't think Hearts are going to get many better opportunities to put this hoodoo to bed finally. You're playing out of sorts Aberdeen team at a time where there's a lot of pressure on the manager. This is as good an opportunity as the Hearts are probably going to get, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those where, in terms of opportunity, Hearts kind of contradict myself, and I agree with Graham, is that Hearts should be going to Pittodrie and not thinking, oh, we should be lucky to come away with a point. It's one of those where Hearts should be going to Pittodrie. It's a venue just like every other venue, except maybe Celtic and Rangers, where Hearts should be going and expecting to get a result. Not saying winning all the time, but get a result. I mean, that's the case with Hearts. It's the third biggest club in Scotland. They should be going away to every other club in Scotland expecting to get a result. Caveat Celtic and Rangers because their budgets, and it's maybe a bit far-fetched to go there and expect to get a result. So that's because on the flip side of what you're talking about in terms of staying in the game and frustrating the crowd, I would argue that the first 10, 15 minutes presents an opportunity to really up the ante, and Aberdeen are going to be fragile. They're going to be coming in, they're going to be nervous, and they're going almost waiting for the crowd to get very antsy. That's an opportunity for Hearts to strike and take advantage of any nervousness and get ahead in the game, and then make it really, really difficult. Maybe just maybe win a game by more than one goal, which would be really, really nice and really comfortable and chilled.
Well, you make a good point, but let's also be honest again. Let's look at this Hearts team that we've seen this season. They must have played about 20 odd games now in all competitions, and have we ever seen Hearts come flying out the traps? No, that doesn't really happen, does it?
Yeah.
We don't. They don't do that.
No, that's very true. That's maybe just been trying to be too idealistic. But the big opportunity is that, like you said, there's a massive opportunity to end that hoodoo. There's also a massive opportunity to put a lot of space, a lot of kind of a big gap between Hearts and Aberdeen in that race for third place, because Hearts win. That's a 13-point gap with nearly half the season gone. Yes, Aberdeen have a game in hand, but that's a long way to chase back. I know I'm saying this, and Aberdeen did similar last season with fewer games to go. So,
but I was going to say, yeah, I thought your memory's been quite selective there, because I can remember. I'm sure I remember a team blowing it from a similar position last season.
Yeah, I'm just as those words were coming out of my mouth, I was thinking, hold on, we were roughly the same number of points ahead of Aberdeen, but later on in the season, and made a pig's ear of it. So yeah, shut up, Joe. We'll move on to. We'll move on to talk about the team, because I see a couple of comments here. So Graham's asked about, interested to see if Gordon starts giving the comments from Naismith. Campbell says comments from Naismith were ridiculous. Xander didn't keep us in the game against Rangers. He should have done better with the goal, and the spill in the box was schoolboy stuff. Gordon needs to come back. And of course, Naismith, speaking to the broadcast media yesterday, hinted that Xander Clark's got the number one spot at the moment. What's your take on it? Do you feel that Gordon should be coming back into the start 11? Do you think Xander Clark has done enough short term and kind of looking back since he started deputising for Gordon to hold on to the number one spot for longer?
So, well, I think first off the bat, I think it's important to say, I think Naismith has to come out and say that Xander Clark's the number one, and Gordon's got to win the gloves back and all that kind of stuff. I think he's in a position where he has to do that. I don't understand what else are they meant to say. He's meant to come out and say, actually, no, actually Gordon's back now, so sorry, Xander, we'll wait the reserves for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
Like, you have to say that. So I think I definitely take that kind of thing with a pinch of salt anyway. In terms of the goalkeeping situation, I mean, Xander Clark's performance against Rangers was totally baffling. I still can't decide if it was good or bad, because I think Naismith's just got a point. I think there were a few moments, where Rangers had some great chances and Clark managed to keep them at bay. That's good. Mm-hmm. But there were also times, I don't think he covered himself in glory for the goal. I think there were other points in the game as well where he made one or two howlers and you're thinking, God, what's he up to? So
yeah,
really weird performance in that it was both good and bad simultaneously, and not really much in between. I do think though, like if Craig Gordon is fit and fully fit and is ready to play, he has to come back into the starting 11. He just does. I mean, that's no slight on Xander Clark. I think you could have basically any other goalkeeper in the league in there, and you'd be saying, "No, now, but when Craig Gordon's fit, Craig Gordon's going to play," because we saw, obviously not so much last season, but the year before, he's still one of the outstanding goalkeepers in Scotland. He's still an absolutely brilliant shot stopper. Can tell you how many points he won Hearts. Not last season, but the one before again. Like it was just absolutely sensational. It seemed like every week he was pulling off this an absolute worldie of a save. You can't afford to overlook a player like that. You just can't. So I think that Xander Clark has done a fairly good job deputising for him. I don't think he's done too much wrong, and I don't think it's reasonable to expect someone who is signed as a backup goalkeeper to have done much more.
No,
I don't think that's fair. Given that it's a guy who's coming in knowing that he's going to be second choice and has been second choice until Gordon got his injury. But at the same time, I think Xander Clark's been a fairly steady pair of hands. I think he's done a good enough job. But Craig Gordon has to get the gloves as soon as he feels he's ready, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the case of who's you play the best players available to you, and Craig Gordon is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, goalkeeper in Hearts history. And it's not like I can completely understand that he's coming back from a third serious injury, and there's only so many years you can play for. But it's not as, I think it's different to like an outfield player. He's not going to lose a yard of pace.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. It's like, is he able to keep the ball out the net to the same high standard? If it's yes, well, he has to play, because there's no one better. Arguably no one better in Scotland at the moment, include Jack Butland in that and keeping the ball out of the net. If you're taking Gordon at his highest standard, I feel for Clark, I really do, because I think the criticism of him has been OTT. I think he has done, like you said, a good job filling in some massive gloves, and I think he is, when Hart signed him, I think he's an ideal number two. He's not as good as Craig Gordon. Ever going to be good as Craig Gordon. Craig Gordon is once in a generation keeper for Hearts. It's a lot to expect from him. But because Hearts fans have seen Craig Gordon in the last 2 years, that's the 2 to 3 years. That's the standard he's going to be held. I think he's been a solid goalkeeper who has had great moments, is a good shot stopper. Seen the important stop he had against St Johnstone, made some excellent saves, like the save from offside. I know it was offside, but from Sima was outstanding.
Oh yeah.
But he does have weaknesses. I think he is sometimes his decision making isn't the greatest, and he can hesitate, as he did with the goal or coming off his line. And also feel sympathy for him, because I just think there's a nervousness now. People know that Craig Gordon's back, and it's almost like they're just waiting for Gordon to be back in the sticks. And I don't think there's, harsh as it is, I don't think there's a lot of trust from within Tynecastle for Clark. And I think it's noticeable that the Hearts players and teammates, they're getting around him and praising him, just kind of keeping that confidence up. And I think that's great to see as a team. He's a really popular guy within the team. I think he's meant to be a really great guy as well. So they're getting around him. But it doesn't take away from the fact that, I mean, if Gordon's going back to it, it's as simple as Gordon's fit, he plays. But at the same time, I think Hearts fans maybe should recognise that, you know what, Xander Clark has done a really, really good job to high standard until now. He's been part of a really, really good defensive record.
No, that's the thing. I mean, he's got, 7 clean sheets or something like that in the league so far this season. Like, that's pretty good going, that's not bad at all. So I think that, yeah, I mean, it's just unfortunate that the position they're both vying for is the goalie. Whereas, let's face it, if somebody gets supremacy, they're there until they absolutely, unless their form drops off a cliff or they get some terrible injury. There's not going to be any. You won't play one goalie 1 week and another guy the next week. It's just the nature of the position. It's the nature of the beast. But Clark will have known that when he signed. Because when he signed, Gordon was still fit. When he signed, Gordon was still the established number one. He knew he was coming in, and he knew that he was going to, let's face it, unless it's a pretty significant drop off in Craig Gordon's ability, he'll be sat on the bench most weekends. He probably, I would guess, probably wouldn't have expected to have played as much as he had in that. In his first 18 months, he'll been first choice goalie for about a year of it. That's probably not what he expected. I'm sure he's happy. I'm sure he's delighted to get the minutes. I'm sure he's delighted to be playing. But again, it's not what he would have reasonably expected going into the gig. So again, Xander Clark himself will know fine well that if Gordon's back and fit and firing, Gordon gets the nod unless he's chucking them in every week, which, let's face it, that's unlikely to happen. So yeah, obviously you've got sympathy with any player who's been playing all right and then loses their spot in the team. It's unfortunate, it's part of football, but I don't think it was coming as a massive surprise to Xander Clark at all. I think it's something that he'll be more than aware of. He'll be ready for it, and then his job after that is just to make sure that he can, continues hitting those heights in training, continues try to hit that standard, continues pushing Gordon on, and tries to reclaim that jersey. I mean, that's going to be incredibly difficult, but let's face it, Craig Gordon's 40 now,
41 on 41. New Year's Eve, I think.
New Year's Eve, Hogmanay, I think it is, yeah. So and obviously he's had these injuries and all that. Yes, he's a bit of a marvel, but at some point, he's going to have to call it a day. Maybe that's what Xander Clark's going to have to just wait around for. Who knows? But
so, yeah. Sorry, James, just on that. That's because I was going to button earlier on. I don't mind when Xander Clark signed. I'd be surprised if he thought, right, you know what, I'm going to be. It's like, you know what, I'll be taking over Hearts number one position in 18 months. I don't think that'd be the case, because I think anyone that speaks to Gordon, you're like, he's going to play till he's 45. As long as he's fit, I think he's going to do a Buffon and play for a number of more years. So a number of years, because I think he's got targets that he wants to hit for Hearts, and so it's any goalkeeper coming into Hearts must realise I'm going to have to compete with Craig Gordon for the next few years.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Yeah, so again, it won't be a massive surprise to Clark, but as I say, if Gordon, manages to get through training today and he's playing well and he says to Naismith, I'm 100%, I feel ready. Naismith goes and speaks to the physios and they say, Joe, yeah, it's fine, he's not just at it, he was actually okay. Then yeah, you give Gordon a chance. I mean, actually that's the point actually. So if Gordon comes back into the team, who's captain at that point?
I would imagine it'll go back to Gordon. He's club captain. He's club captain.
Right, yeah. That's a weird distinction, isn't it? Club captain and what's match day captain or something weird like that. I don't know.
No, I think it's just like if Gordon's there, I think he takes the armband.
Yeah, he's the captain. He's going to play. Yeah. That's how football works.
So we've not really answered the question whether Gordon will play or not tomorrow. We've kind of just said our own view, but going by Naismith's comments, I wouldn't be surprised if Clark continues on for the next few games and Gordon doesn't get until maybe after the New Year against the Spartans, or something happens where Clark does go through a bad spell. But who knows? Naismith has got a proclivity of surprising the two of us with team selection. And within that, what do you think the formation will be tomorrow?
I think it'll probably be the 3-5-2, I would imagine. Again, just kind of what I was saying earlier about the fact that there's a great opportunity there to really frustrate the crowds and make life difficult for them, and make just try and kill hope. Essentially, that's the plan. Kill the hope. So I think you can we know that with the three centre halves, the two wing backs, the number 6, the Hearts become very difficult to break down at that point. It is hard for teams to play through them. Particularly for a team like Aberdeen who like to hit in the counter attack, it does. It offers a good protection against that. So, yeah, I would imagine we'll probably stick with that. Although, having said that, obviously the game against Rangers started off in a 3-5-2, went to a 4-2-3-1. Pretty sure it was 4-4-2 towards the end. So it wouldn't surprise me if Naismith does change things in game, but I would imagine that, just because of Hearts' dreadful record at Pittodrie, the fact that this does represent such a great opportunity because Aberdeen are out of form, because the manager's under pressure. This screams a game where you probably want that little bit extra defensive security, and you'd probably rather be a bit more cautious and defensive, because I think it plays into Hearts' hands over the course of the 90 minutes, rather than maybe going for the 4-2-3-1 and then try to get the quick knockout blow, because then if that doesn't work, and you find yourself trailing, or Aberdeen get a real foothold of the game, start controlling the ball, at that point it can get really difficult to get back into it. So yeah, I would think probably the back three.
So I didn't tell you, I didn't say to you at the time. I meant to say to you when we were maybe I think it was at half time or during the game, but something must have happened and I got distracted. Where it kind of just dawned on me while watching the game on Wednesday that I realised that I'm a very I want to see Mar's team be really hard to beat, and I prefer the defensive solidity than than like expansive football. I like direct, quick football when we get the ball, but I don't want to see much of the ball. So yeah, I'm very much wary to the back three. I think that makes us the hardest to beat. Again, it kind of feeds into my just general pessimism and negativity. But looking at trying to predict the start 11, do you think there'll be any surprises tomorrow? Because I imagine that you've got obviously Halkett available, could come in and play the right side of this, three centre backs. Atkinson obviously had his 45 minutes against Rangers. You had George Grant, who was taken off at half time despite being the best player in the first half. You've got Barry Mackay. You've written a piece on the site, which went up on the site today, about how he can fit into the 3-5-2 and play that kind of attacking midfield position. And then you've got a question mark around, does Lowry come back into the team? Who plays up front with Shanklin? Do we continue with Shanklin and Tagawa? Does Vargas come in, or who plays or with right wing back? Forrest looked really good off the bench against Rangers. Does he come in? So is there, in comparison to the Rangers team, do you see many changes or any surprises?
I don't think there were too much. I mean, I would think, certainly Atkinson's position's under threat. I mean, I don't think he had a good game at all against Rangers. Obviously, still rusty. But having said that, he made three absolutely vital challenges at the back as well, like three shot blocks, that could have easily resulted in goals. So again, weird game in that he did a lot wrong, but also did a few really important things right.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Again, obviously he needs to get back up to fitness. So part of me thinks 2 starts in the space of 4 days, that might be a bit much. I guess that one's probably more of a fitness thing. It comes down to if Naismith can, if he feels that Atkinson's got enough about him that he can do the start of both those games in a row, build up his match fitness, gets him back to full sharpness quicker, perhaps. Like you said, I think actually Forrest, it wouldn't surprise me to come in again. He gives you that little bit of an attacking outball out there. Elsewhere in the team, I can't see too many changes. Like you say, Grant and Lowry will likely be vying for one place in the team, I would imagine. I think it's a good case for either of them. Like you say, Grant had a good game against Rangers. Lowry couldn't play against Rangers, but has consistently been pretty decent. He's consistently been the most creative player in the Hearts midfield anyway. So, yeah, I'd imagine it'll be largely pretty much the same team. I think up front as well, I think it will be Shanklin and Tagawa again. I think that Tagawa, you definitely touched on this after the Rangers match, saying that I think your killer stat was that Tom Lawrence had touched the ball more than Tagawa did, which is pretty damning. It's not great. But then, that's also one of the two teams in the league you're playing against where it's going to be a completely different game to the rest of them. I think we saw, particularly against Kilmarnock, that Tagawa has definitely got something about him. He deserves a run of games, and particularly if Liam Boyce isn't available. I think it's only fair that Tagawa gets a shot. I mean, Kenneth Vargas is a decent player and he's looked pretty good. I think he's looked really encouraging. He also had a very decent sustained run in the team, and while he's played quite well, he's not had that return in terms of just goals, assists, or that kind of stuff. Whereas Tagawa, he's not really had that run. So I think he deserved another chance again. Watching the game back, I think he was. I think he had started really well, and Hearts utilised him quite well in terms of going direct to him, and he was bringing the ball down and linking play. But I completely agree that I think I imagine he's been written off by some already, but having taken time to adapt, having moved across, I think it's only fair that if he is fit and he's got the trust in Naismith, that he's given a shot, a run in the team to just go, right, I found my feet and
having moved the country. I've found feet in training. Now it's time for me to be given time and patience to find my feet on the pitch. And whether that's if that's like an hour building up longer and longer, I think that's the only way you're going to see the best of him. If you try and allow him to mould that relationship with Shankland.
No, absolutely. These things do take time. There isn't a shortcut. There's no magic wand you can wave, and then all of a sudden players will have that understanding. It takes time, but yeah, as you say, there were little flashes. I think against Rangers where he showed he was tracking the game, but I just don't think it's fair to judge any new summer signing based off of 60 minutes against Rangers. I don't think we go, oh, he didn't score. All right, okay, we'll get him back in the bench, bring somebody else on. So I think he deserves a good chance. And yeah, Aberdeen away, that's a testing venue as well. Obviously, we know that Hearts' record there is not great, to say the least. But having said that, I do think that he gives you that option. I think he deserves that chance. I like what he brings to the team in terms of his running and things like that. I think that it's noticeable when you don't have someone like that in the team, and even if it's not quite working off as it maybe did against Rangers, it's still a useful asset to have. And that defenders need to be wary of it. The Aberdeen defenders would have to be wary of the fact that, all right, there's a guy up here who's quite pacey and likes to charge in behind. Even if it's not working. If it's not actually working on the park, that still having that little bit, they're occupying the kind of opponent's mind and giving themselves something to worry about. That itself still has value, in my opinion. So yeah, I'd like to see him give him that goal.
Yeah, and
he's also got a fantastic song as well. So
yes, that too. But I think you can watch the highlights of the Hibs Aberdeen game and look at the goal. What was the first goal that Hibs scored, where Marshall just launched it over the top of the Aberdeen defence, who. Ruvovic has had a interesting time as Aberdeen centre-back so far, and he came steaming out and he looks slow. So I think Tagawa can get the better of him. We'll almost leave it there, James. I'll ask for a prediction right at the end, but I've just a Rangers fan popped on and asked just about Shankland, because the Stands and Firebrox Ash just popped in, lads. Rangers fan, as if you could not guess. We had yet more bad news in our strikers position. Danilo is out for a month, maybe more. January, looking at January, how much would Shankland cost, and would you do a trade with Lowry? This is something we have tackled before about Shankland, how much it would cost. It's difficult to put. It's a difficult balance because of his age, and you think it's with 18 months on his deal, you're not going to get top dollar, but at the same time, how important he is to the team. In that, if we finish third, it could be worth upwards of three, maybe 4 million to the club. And then you look at Shankland, how important he is to the team. We take him out as goals, it becomes a very, very different picture. So I just feel that Rangers would have to stump up a lot of money to make it worthwhile for Hearts. And I'm looking at, in January, I would be disappointed if he was sold for less than 5 million. And certainly if it was sold like less than 4 million, I think it'd be a real bad deal.
Yeah, no, but shouldn't even. I don't think talks should begin unless it's at least at the £5 million point. That's a starting off point. But again, if it was me, I wouldn't sell them. I mean, look at Hearts' goal scorers this season, and you'll notice that there's a few players that have got one goal. I think there's 4 that have scored twice, and there's only one who scored more than 3, and that's Lawrence Shankland.
Yeah, exactly.
Like 12 or 13 or something like that now. So no, yeah, you can't get rid of him. This thing, if you take him out the team, I just think he's far too important. And like you say, particularly the financial rewards that are on offer for finishing third, that guaranteed European group stage football spot, it's just it would need to be silly money. When I think silly money, I start thinking 7 or 8 million. Which for a player of his age, of his profile, with 18 months left in his contract, that would be crazy money. But I think that's what it have to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think there'll be maybe fans of, maybe even Hearts fans like, whoa, you're talking 5, 6, 7, 8 million for Shankland, and they're thinking never going to get that. And I can understand that. I can understand people that think it's way too much, but at the same time, it's with context that
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not about what he's worth. It's about more than that. It's about what you should be demanding for payment. It's not, because like transfer fees and valuations and all that. It's all a bit of a pseudoscience anyway. There's not really much logic to it. A player is worth whatever anyone will pay for him. And in this instance, I think it's that instance of, well, it needs to be the sort of money that you're never going to get offered again. It needs to be something that it needs to be proper once in a blue moon. To the point where the team that are buying them, say in this instance Rangers, where they're questioning it, going, "That's an awful lot of money to spend on that guy." That's how much money it should be. That's what I'm getting at. I think it's one of those things where it is a silly price for a hard striker, particularly one of his age, particularly one of only 18 months left in his contract. But that's what it should take. It should take properly silly money. It has to be a ludicrous offer that's actually just what else? It'd be madness to turn it down.
Exactly. But at the same time, I kind of almost accept that. It's like you turned down like 4 million in January. I'm just like kind of hypothetical. I'm just talking hypothetical here. If you got offered 4 million and you turn it down, and then it wouldn't be. He helps get Hearts to third, and then he sold for 2 million in the summer, and you kind of just go, it's not as nearly as bad, despite having got offered a lot more in January, just because of that 6 month, because it's so hard to replace someone and so hard to buy in January, even more so when you're trying to replace your best outfield best player and your best striker who scores all the goals, and when you're in chasing a European spot and then losing them to a team in your league. So it's one of those where I would reject a lot of money in January with the view that, okay, maybe we're going to have to accept a lot less money in the summer, but if he's got us into Europe, then that's the trade-off is absolutely worth it.
No, that's kind of, I totally agree with that, to be honest. Yeah, I think that's entirely worth it. I guess something else that's just popped into my head is that if there was enough money that Hearts could sell Shankland and then buy Miovski and then have a couple of million left over, that's maybe quite good. That's maybe quite good business, but I don't see it happening, to be honest.
That's now we're getting a Football Manager.
Exactly. It's getting a bit silly now.
So let's finish there, James. And before we do, give me a prediction for tomorrow.
I think it'll be a 1-1 draw. I think I don't think it's going to be the best game of football in the world. I don't think it's going to be particularly exciting, and I think that Aberdeen fans desperately want to win in order to improve the league situation. Hearts fans desperately want to end the hoodoo, and I think that everyone's going to go home a bit upset, but not raging.
I'm not going to predict, because I don't want to bring a depressing mood to finish this briefing. So I better we'll just move on and finish it there. James, thank you very much, and to everyone who continues to listen and subscribe, thank you very much. This is also available as a podcast. We try and do 3 to 4 episodes a week, and on heartstandard.co.uk you can find all the latest from the press conference yesterday with Stephen Naismith. You find everything he said, injury update, and talking about making big decisions with the players coming back. James has also written a piece on how, we didn't really touch on it, but how go across on the site and see how he envisages Barry Mackay fitting into the 3-5-2, and we will have a Q&A with Barry Mackay up at 10:30 p.m. tonight, and then James is heading Pittodrie tomorrow, so he'll be providing all the pre and post match analysis from there. So until Monday, when we'll probably look back at the Aberdeen game, see you later, and hopefully everyone has a good